Hello and welcome back to the Lucid Dreaming Podcast. This is episode 22 and it's been a while, and there have been many reasons why it's been a while, and they sort of all tie together in this episode, so I'm not even sure where to start from. But I'm going to run through all of it, and hopefully it makes sense, and hopefully it's interesting. And as you know, I only record episodes when I actually have something to say, as opposed to just manufacturing episodes for the sake of having more episodes. So that's a positive and a negative, but at least when you get one, hopefully you enjoy it. And actually, I wanted to start with the fact that I've quit my job. I had a day job, as you know. I've mentioned before, maybe some of you know, I'm a web developer, and I used to work for a company for a year and a half, and I wanted to go back to still supporting myself via web development work as a freelancer, but I wanted to be able to have more time to work on my projects, to work on the podcast as well, but mostly on the gadget that I've mentioned that I'm building, and I'll get to that in a little bit, and just to have a little more freedom to pursue all sorts of interests that I have, and they all kind of circle around the same general area. Since I've quit my job and I've had to start a few projects and do a few things, I also wanted to look at the option of having advertisers, having sponsorship for the podcast, to see if this is some kind of a viable income source, at least to some degree. I'm not, nobody likes advertising too much, but we know that what can afford us some free content of all sorts, online and otherwise. And I will say this. One, I will never advertise anything that I don't use myself and that I don't think it's good. I've had several requests for people to advertise on the podcast from a supplement company, Supplements for Lucid Dreaming, and a few other ones that I didn't feel were right, or that I didn't believe in, or that I didn't think I should promote in any way. So I'm never going to put anything on the podcast that's going to be something that doesn't align, or that I don't at least find useful or interesting, even if not for myself, but at least for others. So I do promise you that. And again, this is an experiment. I want to find more ways to support myself, or at least to cover the expenses of hosting the episodes and hosting the podcast. There's some cost involved with that, and I want to at least cover that. So having said that, without further ado, let me introduce my new sponsor for the podcast. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/luciddreaming. That's AUDIBLE trial.com/luciddreaming. Over 180,000 titles to choose from on your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. And let me just say, I always recommend a bunch of books and audiobooks. There's plenty of that I've listened to, and there's a big long list on my Audible app on my iPhone. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna recommend a specific one each episode with the sponsorship, so you actually have like a good recommendation to go listen to. And I'm gonna start with the one that's very obvious to me. And I've had Andrew Holacek on the podcast. I think it was episode 14. So I highly recommend his audiobook, Dream Yoga: The Tibetan Path of Awakening Through Lucid Dreaming. It's fantastic. It's why I wanted him on the podcast to begin with. And I'll put a link as well on the show notes, and a link to the Audible trial link so you can get your free audiobook. So go to audibletrial.com/luciddreaming to get your free audiobook. Thanks to Audible for sponsoring the podcast. Okay, so back to our scheduled programming. The reason, I think one of the reasons, I have a confession. One of the big reasons I haven't recorded an episode in a while is because, in this, you'll see how this ties into everything else I'm going to talk about, including the gadget, including some stuff that I've been doing in the past 3 months. And that is that my sleep has been deteriorating over 6 months or so, even more now, in a rapid pace, and it's just been getting worse and worse. And I don't always talk about my particular sleep or how many lucid dreams I've had and so on. For long-time listeners, people who might have listened to earlier episodes as well, you might remember that I mentioned that I wake up very often and during the night. Like it feels like I wake up at least 15 times or more. I can't really count because it's very fuzzy. But I used to wake up multiple times and thought it was great for two reasons. One is that it can be useful for lucid dreaming. You have more opportunities to fall back asleep using a technique or just fall back into REM. So you can use intention and or wild or any of the techniques as you fall back asleep. The second reason was, and I used to say this phrase, more fun than going to sleep is going back to sleep, because I would wake up like sleepy, feeling that heavy sleepy feeling, and there's just nothing more fun than just putting your head back down and just dozing off back into sleep. It's just the best feeling in the world. It's like when you wake up and you realize you have like 2 hours left before the alarm is supposed to go off, and you're like, yes, I'm falling back asleep. But what's been happening, and I'm not quite sure why, and I've been trying to fix it for a while now, is that these wake-up moments are now, instead of being with this sleepy, heavy feeling where I can fall back asleep easily, now I wake up every time and I'm just feeling uncomfortable. I have to toss. Just something feels wrong. My thoughts are racing. I'm having like these sort of mental loops in my head as if something, I'm trying to work out something and I can't figure it out. And I can't even tell what that is. It's kind of obscured. But these have been getting worse and worse, and I've just been not able to fall back asleep easily, and I just feel uncomfortable. And I'm not going to run you down through every little nuance of my sleep pattern, but it's been wreaking havoc on my sleep in general, my mood, all sorts of things. And I've talked before about how sleep is so important for almost any aspect. And those of you who follow me on Twitter, I tweet and retweet studies and research and papers and so on that show how important sleep is to just damn near everything in your life. So all that effects aside, my dream recall has been nearly shattered. I'm still having dreams and I still remember fragments, but my lucid dreaming has just completely collapsed to zero. I haven't had a lucid dreaming in a very long time because of this. And I think somewhere I've been feeling kind of sort of guilty, like I couldn't feel like I could come on the podcast and talk about lucid dreaming when I barely have one or any these days. It's so funny. Even last night, and I kid you not, I was dreaming that I was flying, and I'm thinking, and this is one of the first, maybe one of two ever dreams that I was dreaming I'm flying and I did not become lucid. This is how bad this is. And I dreamt I was flying, and I'm thinking like, whoa, I'm actually flying and this is not a dream. Like I'm flying in real life. How is this possible? This is amazing. And my friends on the ground are like marveling at my ability to fly. And it didn't click this time. Something is off in my brain. I can't quite tell what it is, but, in any case, just this, my sleep issues have been ruining, completely destroying my dream and lucid dream practice and my dream recall and just my sleep in general. And it's been annoying. And I've actually, this ties in, you'll see how this ties into everything I'm talking about today. I've been wanting to do a sleep tracker comparison, like a review of all the sleep trackers. And I've been doing a lot of research, and I've bought a bunch of them. And I've also bought a bunch of them because I wanted to track my sleep to try to figure out what's wrong with my sleep. Where is my sleep? How good is my sleep? How much REM am I getting? How many times of a night am I waking up? And I bought a bunch of them. I bought the Jawbone Up 3. Supposedly is one of the best ones with that uses both accelerometer, meaning your movements, and your heart rate, because it's a wristband that measures heart rate. I've tried Bedit, which is a strip And I've talked about some of these before. This strip that lies under your mattress cover and also measures heart rate. I backed the Hello Sense on Kickstarter, and they shipped a while back. And this one is a little orb that sits next to your bed and measures some aspects of the bed environment, like how much light there is, how much noise there is, the quality of air, and so on. So this is useful for sleep conditions, but it also has an accelerometer that clips onto your pillow and measures your movement. And I've tried a few more, and what I've concluded is that they are all terrible. None of them are even remotely accurate. To start, none of them match the other ones. So all of them are reporting different sleep data, as if I'm three different people, which is, only true on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But none of them match each other, so I wouldn't even know which one to consider the most accurate. I have no indication. And even on their own, none of them track even remotely closely how often I wake up, including the times I wake up and get up to go to the bathroom or something like that. So they are completely inaccurate. They are inaccurate as to when I go to sleep and when I wake up. None of them have nailed it, and it's such a bummer. I mean, they sell a lot of these, and maybe I'm the odd case somehow, but I doubt it. I mean, they have to, I don't know. I mean, if you've tried any of these and you find that it's accurate to your experience, that's awesome. I think it only takes the weird cases or people who wake up a lot or don't sleep well to even detect that something is wrong, because most people fall asleep, they wake up in the morning and they see the data and they're like, okay, I don't know, that sounds about right. I can't tell how many, light sleep cycles, REM cycles, deep cycles I've had. People can't really tell. I can't quite tell either, but I can tell how many times I woke up and how many times I got up, and none of them were even close to accurate. Which leads me to the latest Kickstarter campaign that I've backed, and it just finished. And so I couldn't report on this earlier because I didn't have an episode up, but I did tweet about it. It's called the Oura, O-U-R-A, and it's in a ring, and it's actually like a sleep tracker and activity tracker. I'm not a big fan of activity trackers as a ring. I don't wear rings. I don't think it fits me, and it's kind of a bulky one, but it looks kind of cool, and I don't mind sleeping with one if it's accurate. And they claim very good accuracy. They're claiming that they're not like the rest. I'm going to give this one a try because I'm an optimist, and I hope that one of them is going to nail it. And it might end up that the only one that was ever accurate is the one that's no longer on the market because it was ahead of its time, which was the Zeo. And the Zeo was a headband with EEG that was actually tracking your freaking brainwaves. Excuse my French. But I'm going to try this ring once they ship in November, and hopefully that one is more accurate. But I've been very disappointed with all the sleep trackers. It's just such a bummer. And maybe this is just the impetus for somebody to come and build a proper one. And maybe the only proper one that we'll ever be able to make would be EEG based, because it's actually checking what your brain is doing in any given moment, which is the closest reflection of whether you're asleep or awake, whether you're in deep sleep, REM sleep, light sleep, or whether you're lucid dreaming. And so gadgets like the Aurora, which has a built-in EEG, might be able to do something like that. I don't know if they've built in. I think they're having some data about your sleep, but we'll see exactly when it comes out. So I look forward to the ring, and I look forward to the Aurora, of course, for its lucid dreaming features as well. But again, I am on a mission to solve my sleep, because everything else is conditioned upon it. And this brings me to my gadget. And back in June, the last episode, I've mentioned that I've let go of my previous engineer, who basically spent basically a year over engineering something. I ended up with a circuit board that doesn't work, no REM detection, no nothing. Spent a lot of money in an entire year, and at the end of it, nothing to show for. And I decided to cut my losses and find a new engineer, which I did, and I mentioned that. And this engineer is not only an awesome engineer, he's an awesome all-around person. His name is Morgan, and Morgan is badass. And so he's been working diligently on this. And what we've decided to do, and this is part of my update, and again, I'll tie this all back into my sleep issues you'll see in a second. Because I felt like I've wasted a year, I just wanted to get the stimulation part of the device done, to be able to test it, to see how it works, to refine it, to make sure it does indeed induce lucid dreams. And so I asked Morgan to build just a stimulator with a timer, because I thought if I just put the timer on a small cycle, like every 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and I put it up around 5 a.m., I'm bound to hit a REM cycle. And I thought, okay, that's just easy enough. Let's worry about REM detection later. I had all sorts of ideas for it, but I didn't want to go the whole route of taking the time to build either an EEG detector or something else. And I wanted to just get the stimulator working per specs and test it and just put it on my head, go to sleep with a timer, let it run a few times. I'm bound to hit a REM cycle in a dream, and I'll find out if this works. The problem is that, again, by the time he finished building it, and I'll post a picture on the show notes and on Twitter very soon. I mean, it doesn't, maybe to the untrained eye, it doesn't look like much, but it's a board and it's working. But by the time that was ready, just my sleep has gotten so bad that I just could not get it to work, and I could not. Now with 4 electrodes stuck to my head and a headband over them, I just was even more uncomfortable during sleep and just could not sleep well enough to be certain that I had a full proper REM cycle during which stimulation has occurred, and be sure that this thing actually works properly. And despite my several attempts, when I finally have a prototype, and again, to Morgan's credit, he managed in a couple months to build what the other person couldn't even do in a year, which is just remarkable. But I realized, okay, this is not working. So there's 2 things I've decided to do. I've pulled up an old. This basically was like if you remember those of you who know the Nova Dreamer, the sleep mask with REM detection and blinky lights that Stephen LaBerge created a long time ago. That was off the market, and you can only find it, on eBay for hundreds of dollars and so on, or if you had one from back when, but there were no more for sale until he kept promising the second version, which has not come out in 10 years since he promised. But there was a sort of knockoff or similar thing called the REM Dreamer, which technically actually worked, except it's still, REM detection, blinky lights, it's not perfect. The REM detection does work, and it works by, the sleep mask having eye movement. It just detects your eye movement. So what I dug that one up. I had this one for a long time, and Morgan has MacGyverly engineered and basically connected it to our stimulator, to our prototype. And now that's ready for testing. So now I'm going to have another object on my face and on my head while I'm going to sleep. And that's going to be even slightly more uncomfortable for me. But it's going to guarantee that we are sending stimulation only during REM, which eliminates one factor, one parameter of a question mark of how this thing runs. So we now have both REM detection and the stimulator, and it's ready for testing, finally. However, I don't sleep well enough to even try this on. It's just not working. So my current step, so that's the first update about the device itself. So the good news is we have a prototype to test with. This is very exciting. And it has REM detection now. That's even more exciting. No need for the annoying timer. But I need to fix my sleep. And I've tried a lot of things. I've tried melatonin. I've tried reducing caffeine, and I only drink 2 cups of coffee a day. I moved back to 1 for a while. Didn't really make a big difference. I've tried, I meditate on a regular basis, although again, this has not affected my sleep positively. Not in the past 6 months, at least. I've tried reducing screen time, not staring at a screen and turning off lights, 30 minutes to an hour before sleep. Again, I've tried to read all the measurements from all the sleep detectors to try to figure out what the problem is, and just nothing worked. And I'm going to try something new this month. I've been reading a lot about, because as you know, I'm fascinated with the brain. I've been reading a lot about neurofeedback. And I've talked before about neurofeedback. I wrote about it in my article because I thought that that's one way we could possibly train the brain to become lucid more often. And I still believe that that might be possible, though there's no research on that. That's just my guesstuation about it. But neurofeedback, basically, for those of you who don't know, is measuring electrical signals from your brain, basically EEG, even very, very few electrodes. And with this data, providing feedback, either visually or with audio or both. So the way this is done most often these days is with like a little video game with something flying on the screen. And your task is basically to make this little thing on the screen do something, or for the audio to change. And you don't really have to do anything. Your brain does that. But the software is written in such a way where it measures your brain waves. And if your brain is doing something that we want it to do, okay, to train your brain into certain states or a certain frequency of brain waves, then the video game will reward you by like a ding or some music or the little creature flying in the right place or right space. And if your brain does the right thing, if it does the wrong thing, then the music kind of dies down or something wrong happens. And it's the inverse effect of giving you a reward. And by giving you a reward, there's a feedback loop that's running, that's informing the brain, yes, do this, or no, don't do this. And basically, over time, it trains your brain into achieving a particular desired state. And there's all sorts of things, and this has been proven to help with focus and attention, helping people with ADHD with basically zero side effects. This has been proven to help with sleep, and this is why I'm looking into it, and many other things as well. This is it's not a cure for everything, but this has been very effective with dealing directly with the brain and working with the brain's capacity with just giving it the right, stimuli and the right guidance. And so this month I am starting neurofeedback training specifically for sleep, and it's going to start with a full head of a QEEG, a full head of EEG to sort of take the full state of my brain and try to not quite diagnose, but to see if there's anything obvious that indicates why my sleep is so problematic. And again, I've tried to eliminate everything else. I've been eating healthy, taking vitamins. I've been working out. I've been trying everything. I mean, really at my wit's end. I'm sure you understand. And if any of you who have trouble sleeping, I'm sure you understand. I got a lovely email from a listener who has something so far worse than I have. I feel even ashamed complaining about my sleep issues when I hear kind of these stories, and how people actually how this person amazingly is dealing with their issue. So this is the next thing. I'm going to try neurofeedback, and I'm going to report back as I train and see if this works, because if this works, this is just phenomenal. Without pills, without any side effects, this would be amazing, and I can't wait to sleep properly again. Just for my mood regulation, for my sanity, let alone for my dream and lucid dream practice, and so I can finally test my prototype properly. So that's the update about this, and this is why I've been wanting to give an update about the prototype for so long, but I didn't want to until I could say, this works, I had the prototype and it works and induced dreams, but I couldn't yet because I just can't sleep well yet. And this is one of the reasons why I've keep putting off doing another episode. But I think it's time, and I kind of wanted to confess this in some weird way, because I don't know, there's some conflict about it. I am another little update. I'm driving up to the Transformative Technology Conference, the first of its kind in Palo Alto. I'm driving up today, and it's going tomorrow, and it sounds fascinating, and it's right up my alley, and it's about things like neurofeedback and brain research and technology. I mean, I think that the gadget I'm working on sort of fits this description and this kind of movement of consciousness hacking, and there's some amazing speakers there. And I'm going to report back from the conference as well and seeing what's the sort of latest and greatest and coolest new things that are upcoming in this field of mindfulness. I know there's one of the vendors who are presenting in has to do something with sleep. I'm not sure what it is exactly. I couldn't find enough information, but that should be interesting as well. Last little thing, because I always tell you about the latest books I'm reading and the latest articles and so on. And I am reading right now a book by Evan Thompson, and it is fantastic. It's called Waking, Dreaming, Being, and it's about consciousness and self in all these various states of, waking, dreaming, lucid dreaming. There's a whole chapter about lucid dreaming, and it is absolutely fascinating. Evan Thompson is just a remarkable character. I'll put some links into some of his talks or some of his interviews, and I'm gonna, once I finish the book, I am waiting to finish the book first. I'm gonna reach out and hopefully have him on the podcast. I hope he has the time to come on and do a quick interview, because this guy is phenomenal, and I have so many questions. And he's a philosopher and a researcher, a scientist, and one of my favorites of late. So I highly recommend the book, Waking, Dreaming, Being, and I'll put a link in the show notes as well. So this was a quick one. I'm not going to ramble on more than I have. I promise to update sooner. And if you have any feedback about anything I've said, about the sponsorship, about, sleep issues, and about the podcast in general, of course, you can always reach me via email at contact@lucidsage.com, or find me on Twitter. This is where I update things the most, on most consistent basis, and tweets about research and studies and all sorts of interesting things about sleep and lucid dreaming, and about my own progress and all sorts of things in between podcast episodes, because they take a little production and a little time and a little effort. So I am at the Lucid Sage on Twitter, so hit me up there. And until next time, I hope you enjoyed this episode.